When a project fails, we usually blame the people, but systemic collapse often occurs regardless of the individual talent involved. The moment a sudden disruption removes a single node from the structure, the entire mechanism tends to fracture. Standard organizational theory treats teams as social groups bound by chemistry. This assumes that strong bonds can compensate for any loss. Data suggests otherwise. Human chemistry fails to provide structural integrity when a system undergoes catastrophic stress. The failure is not social, it is geometric. The observer-dependent theory of everything, or ODTOE, offers a different starting point. It treats a project team as a physical system governed by the laws of recursive observation. This model defines a team as an observation loop, a circuit taking abstract potential and collapsing it into reality through a continuous self-referential cycle. But every closed system faces an inevitable risk. Remove one station and the cycle stops. This raises a fundamental question of structural engineering. What is the minimum number of components a loop needs to survive its own breaking? Resilience is the mathematical capacity of a structure to self-regenerate. It requires enough nodes to bridge a gap without the entire system halting. Finding this exact number is a requirement for preventing systemic death. A baseline system has 3 nodes: visionary, analyst, and builder. We measure its viability through a coherence function, S. Where 1.0 is a perfect loop, a 3-person team scores 0.18, the boundary of chaos. If the builder leaves, the system hits a hard stop. Imagination and observation continue, but there is no mechanism to translate them into reality. The system lacks internal complexity to route around the missing function. A 3-node structure is a skeleton. It cannot repair itself, and a single failure guarantees system death. Adding a 4th member, the validator, integrates reality feedback to close the loop. The coherence score reaches 0.33, the mathematical threshold for survival, but it remains fragile. If one node is removed, the remaining roles cannot compensate. The loop becomes lopsided and asymmetric. This imbalance drags the team into one of 2 absorbing states, mathematical traps where the system ceases to learn or function. In nihilistic collapse, the team loses belief in its ability to act, and the coherence score drops to 0. In dogmatic collapse, the team becomes overconfident, ignoring external feedback until reality breaks the structure. A 4-person system survives on paper, but it collapses under the weight of its own uncompensated blind spots. True resilience requires a 5th node, the coherence keeper. This role explicitly monitors the health and balance of the other 4. With the 5th node, the coherence score jumps to 0.93. The system is highly stable. At exactly 5 members, a resilience matrix emerges, a structural symmetry allowing the system to reroute internal flow. If the builder is lost, the analyst and validator crosswire their functions to bridge the gap. If the visionary leaves, the analyst and coherence keepers synthesize roles to maintain direction. The structure itself compensates. At 5 components, the system achieves homeostasis. It becomes a self-sustaining organism capable of surviving its own injuries. The 5-role structure is rooted in the logic of cyclical systems. Any system that must observe itself to exist follows the geometry of a circle. In circular geometry, the relationship between a system's boundary and its center is defined by pi. ODTOE models the minimum nodes for a self-referential loop as the ceiling of pi, the next whole number above 3.14, plus 1 additional node for systemic closure. This pi architecture indicates that 5 isn't an arbitrary number. It is the geometric requirement for a loop to observe, act, and self-correct simultaneously. Systems with fewer than 5 nodes remain structurally vulnerable to a single point of failure. Larger systems add redundant weight and communication overhead without introducing new structural capacities. Building a resilient team involves constructing a closed, strange loop, a circuit that feeds back into itself to maintain its own existence. These 5 pillars provide the exact structural minimum required to convert human thought into the enduring architecture of reality.